After hours of painting, weathering and layering details, this is the final result. This is the last part of Nemesis project, and today I'm finishing everything with the base and details that bring the entire diorama to life. Just a few days ago, this was nothing more than raw grey 3D print. No texture, no atmosphere, no realism. Let's change that. Like every project, everything starts with primer. For the base, rugs and the broken RPD logo, I'm using black primer across the entire surface. This step might not look exciting, but it's one of the most important parts of the process. A good primer doesn't just help the paint stick better, it also creates the foundation and all the shadows which we will build later. Because this base has a lot of texture, rocks, damaged surfaces, cracks and debris, starting with black immediately gives us the natural contrast. Right now it just looks like a dark piece of resin, but trust the process. Once the layer starts going on, all these details will begin to come alive. For some technical issues this part was not recorded, but simply I just applied the dark brown color and the cracks with airbrush to cover the deep parts with dark brown color. For the next step I use simple makeup sponge with grey paint, and honestly this is one of my favorite tricks. Using very gentle taps on high surfaces, the sponge only catches the raised textures while leaving the darker areas underneath untouched. This creates natural contrast without needing precise brush work. It's also a great beginner technique because the texture almost builds itself. Next, I wanted to add a bit more life and variation to the ground. Using an orange-brown color, I applied a light dry brush over the dirt areas of the base. This small step adds warmth and creates more natural, weathered look. Real environments are rarely made of one single color. Dirt picks different tones over time: dust, rust, moisture, and where all leave subtle variation. Even small color changes like these can make the base feel much more believable. After that I prepared wash using smoke ink and I applied across the entire base. This step helps bring everything together. The wash naturally flows into cracks, textures and deeper areas, increasing shadows and adding a dirty, worn feeling to the environment. And if the base suddenly looks darker at this stage, don't panic. That's completely normal. Washes often looks a little messy at first, but after, when they dry, they soften transitions and makes the details feel much more natural. Painting realistic rugs can be simply done with dry brush and neutral gray color or even stone gray color. Depends. Sometimes you should do 2-3 rounds of dry brush, first with neutral gray, then lighter and even more light color on top of each other. In this part I give the realistic effect of burnt and explosion on the metal, so I will make a specific entire tutorial about how to give these effects in upcoming videos. To give the realistic blood effect on the surface of the base, I will use 3 different blood colors. First, with dry brush I will apply the dried blood and the lines and the shape which is defined, which is the blood way. Then when it will be dried, I will use fresh blood with a brush I apply on the top, and then at the end it will be scarlet blood on top of all. The base is entirely done with all realistic effects. Now it will be time to paint Brad. With hot glue gun you can stick these handles, which they can be plastic, metal or even wood, to pieces of the figure, which will give you the opportunity to hold them better while painting, and at the end to apply varnish without touching the surface of the piece. Based on the final figure color, you should define which color primer you are going to use. So in this case, since Brad will be more light color and more vibrant, I will apply white primer instead of black primer. I start painting with Brad's vest. To prevent the sleeves of the shirt underneath of the vest, I will use liquid mask. So since I will apply the paint with airbrush on the vest and I don't want the sleeves to take color, I will use liquid mask on the sleeves. This material is like just a simple paint. You can use the brush to apply on the surface which you don't want to take color, and you should give some time to be totally dried and ready to go for the next steps. Till the liquid mask will be totally dried and ready. Meanwhile, I will start with painting arms and face of Brad with dark flesh color. Dark flesh gave us the deep parts of the muscles and the dark tones of the shadows on the surface of the skin. Now with light flesh and dry brush method, I will apply the high surfaces of the muscles and, let's say, the skin, the lighter parts, to give the realistic and beautiful contrast which we expect to have on the skin. These trousers can be painted in 3 simple steps. The first step is to apply goblin green with airbrush and entirely on the trousers. The second step will be using dry brush method and rotten white on the raised areas to give realistic effect, and the last step to give some shadows on the deep parts and the texture of the trousers. I will use amber wash with airbrush. I will simply apply on the trousers, and in the meanwhile use a piece of sponge or a handkerchief to collect the extra paint which remains on some parts. Mix of green, yellow, elf skin and light flesh will give us the best combination for the vest color. So with airbrush, simply with mix of these 3, each one of them the same amount, and here we are painting the vest entirely. For painting the boots, I use chocolate brown on the entire boot, then the down part I apply black paint, and to give some contrast between the deep parts I use black wash. The vest color was totally dried. I used airbrush and I applied amber wash on the surface to give the deep parts darker color. So as you see in the video, now I'm removing the liquid mask easily, and you see the sleeves are totally remained untouched. The rocket launcher will be painted in 3 simple steps. One step I apply the green color, then it will be the dry brush with metallic paint, and at the end giving a good black wash to stabilize the colors and to give some contrast. And finally, the simple method how to apply blood on Brad's vest.